What's up, y'all? I'm back for another video. Sorry I didn't do one last night, or the Meg one. So what I'm gonna do is before I get into Spider-Man 2, actually I have a couple things to talk about. I guess before I get into the Meg, which I'm just gonna do a quick Meg review since I don't want to keep putting it off. Actually no. I'll just do the Meg next week. I promise for sure. But I want to talk about this really quick. I did watch Blue Beetle. I got a special WB copy, and man, it is not good. Like, I'll review it tomorrow, but holy shit. It is not just like very derivative, like it's literally but you could like name the superhero movie like origin story. It's like Iron Man 1. There you can see Ant-Man, you can see fucking Spider-Man, the ironic we're talking about Spider-Man 2. And it makes sense kind of watching both on the same day to see the two sides of like what makes a great superhero film, and then you get something like this. Um, I'm not gonna pronounce his name, so I'm just gonna say Miguel from Cobra Kai. I do like him in this, and Jenny as Jenny, the actress who plays Jenny Court. I thought she was decent. So there was like probably my only positives in the movie. Everything else, just the family was obnoxious. The villain, Susan Sarandon, just was phoning it. You could tell she was just doing it for a paycheck, and they laid it on thick with the messaging, like, oh, they mentioned, immigration, gentrification, all this, all this shit in one movie. Constant, just like there's scenes where like, they go to court and because Jaime gets an interview right at court, and they fucking there's like this Czech lady who thinks he's like a delivery person, and it's like clearly supposed to be like he's Mexican, so he's not, like, he's just like the help. It's like little shit like that, man. It's so like they browbeaten you. It's so over the top. There's like, even a scene like where Cord Industries um attack Miguel's house because they're looking for the scarab, and it's literally like it looks like an ice raid. I'm just gonna say it, like it looks like an ice raid. It's shit like that, man. So it's, but like for me, the worst is the derivative because it's like it doesn't even try to be original. It's like the scene when he's first using the tech. It's like it feels like the scene where first Tony obviously first uses his suit, but I also feel like it's Spider-Man first using his powers, Peter training, first using his powers and, getting used to his powers. But then, there's even scenes when he has like the Iron Man vision POV. You have like the Jarvis, but it's a girl. And there's even times it tries to be like witty like Jarvis, and it's just cringe. Um, the action is not that good. The villain isn't good. There's just this, um, I'll just say, Jenny Core, again, basically it's supposed to be like, it's called like OMAC or something like that, where it's this the they need the scarab to basically maximize in it. It's the final fight is very Ironmonger versus Iron Man. Like it has no identity. I think that's probably what I'm gonna probably title it. This movie has no identity because it's literally a million of other movies. You could argue, oh, everything is a little derivative. Oh, true, but at least you can make it your own. Spider-Man 2002 is a perfect example. It does follow the template of like a Superman 78, but it's still its own movie. It does it in its own flair, and that's why it stands out aside from Superman 78. It doesn't just, oh, this is just a Superman 78 derivative. But this doesn't. This is literally every scene. It's like, okay, I've seen this scene. I've seen this, but better. And also it just makes me want to watch those movies and not watch this. So 3 out of 10. I'll get more into it tomorrow, but I want to get right into Spider-Man 2. And to me, this is the best Spider-Man movie. Like, I love Spider-Man 1, but this is like really brought it to a whole new level. Like, what I love about this film is how much it does what a sequel should do, but in spades. Build on the story from the first one, and it really does. And I also think this one really shows like Peter's life. Like, everything's kind of shit for him. Mary Jane, he's estranged from. Aunt May's about to be evicted. He just, he loses his job in the beginning of the movie. It kind of shows you like how much Spider-Man's kind of, because we're 2 years now since he's become Spider-Man. Harry and him have even kind of become a little estranged because Harry's mad about what happened to his father. So it really kind of does highlight that aspect. Like Peter and Spider-Man have two different lives. He's a beloved hero, but when he's Peter, his life's kind of shit. So I really think this movie does a really good job at highlighting that, but also I love the action scenes. Alfred Molina as Doc Ock is one of the greatest villain performances ever, man. He really performed his ass off in this movie. And that scene when he, after the reactor blows, after he gets fused with the arms and the reactor blows up and his wife is dead, he's taken to the hospital and they try to cut. That whole scene is fucking very much, it felt like a horror movie. Like, I even, like, didn't caught on this when I was rewatched it, like, a couple years ago. It does feel kind of like a horror movie. Like, the arms, like, it's all quiet, and, they're about to catch it, and boom! They're just, like, killing motherfuckers. They don't show it, but it does, like, the implication works, so. I love the score, too. The score in this movie, I'm going to say it, the Spider-Man Raimi film score is it needs to be talked about more because that whole soundtrack in this movie is fucking awesome. And I love the whole, the hero's kind of tested, Peter's life's kind of gone to shambles and he kind of blames becoming Spider-Man a little bit because of that. So, throughout the film, he kind of starts losing his powers. And I really think that's the other reason I love this film. It's kind of a challenge film, the hero's challenge. And that's kind of like, this is going to be a lesson, Blue Beetle. Like, I don't know, I'm talking to a movie here, but whatever. But this is how you do it. Because I'll say this really quick about Blue Beetle before I get into it. I'll talk about that tomorrow. But I just want to say this. There's no moment where he even feels like a hero. He just gets the scarab, and I'll talk about this more later. Basically, it gets inside his body, and I'll talk about that more tomorrow. And it, gets all the powers. But there's not a moment he actually has a heroic moment, really. Like, he bails out his family a couple scenes, but that doesn't really count. Like, there's not a moment where he, like, and I know some people, like, I'll admit, I was one of those sometimes. The whole, Superman saving cats from a tree. But even something like that, helping a kid, even saving a kid from, like, in the front of, like, from a tree, like, from a train, a truck or something like that. Like, going back to Spider-Man 2, like, there's even moments like that in the opening of the film. While, delivering pizza, he sees kids walking in front of a truck and he saves them. There's, like, little things like that. And gets the love of the city. Why don't there's not even moments like that. I'm not saying it needs to go to be the level of Spider-Man, but if you're gonna attempt Blue Beetle be your Spider-Man, maybe do things like that. But anyway, I'll talk about that tomorrow. But Spider-Man 2, just those little moments of the hero being challenged is what I love about this film. I really quick, if I had one negative, and I tweeted this out earlier about Mary Jane, I'm sorry, Kirsten Dunst, and it's not fully her fault. I think the sequels, unfortunately, really ruin her. Because, I'm going to be honest, Mary Jane's unlikable in this movie. Not as bad as she is in 3. 3 is... She literally, basically resents Peter because he's Spider-Man and he has a better life than her. That's it. That's all it is. So I'll talk about that next week. But in this, too, it's not fully her fault. Because I actually think in the first one, and I did mention this, that she was good. It's just the sequel, she falls apart. They make her unlikable. Then it's weird because there's a line where she says she knew the whole time, when Peter obviously tells her, when she finds out he's Spider-Man, it's like, okay, she always knew, but then it's like, you're mad at him for missing your plays. Which, that is the cringiest thing to me. Like, her whole thing with Peter is she's mad because he didn't see her play. That's literally it. Like, if we're gonna boil it down, and I love this movie, but if we're gonna be real, that is why she's fucking mad. Because she didn't see her play. He didn't see her play. it's, are you kidding me? I'm gonna be honest. The Mary Jane scenes were just very painful. Besides the end, I do like that scene in the end, and even when he tells her, like, I think there are moments. It's just they don't write her that way. I don't understand why they went with this version, and then it gets way worse in the third one. And it's like, why not just have Mary Jane be Mary Jane? She's supposed to be Peter's rock, and I don't really feel like there's a moment in that. I feel like you get that in the first one. That's like the only one you really get that in. I don't feel like there's any of that in this one. And I love this movie, but if I'm being honest, it really isn't. Like, I'm gonna be honest. Kirsten Dunst, they really, it sucks. Because I do love Mary Jane, like, if written right, could be, is one of the greatest love interests of all time. And they just, yeah. She gets, like, there's parts in the movie where you do see it, but it's, gets bogged down because, oh, she's mad because he didn't see it or play the whole fucking movie. And I'm gonna be honest, the whole thing with John Jameson just felt forced too. Like, you didn't need that. If you wanted to have them just get distant from each other, why did you have to have Mary Jane be in a relationship? You could just have it be she has a career and maybe she just does her thing and maybe ignores. If you're gonna do that, you didn't need to have her get in a relationship with Jameson's son. It felt out of nowhere. And I also just feel like he was also, I'm gonna be honest, another criticism. So I have a couple, but I'm gonna still call this 10 out of 10 movie. I don't care. Because if I only have like 2 or 3 criticisms and they don't bring the whole movie down like that, so that's why I can still call it a 10, even though there's a little bit. Like, yeah, Jameson's son, he didn't need to be in this movie. I felt like he was useless, and I always felt like that. Even as a kid, I was like, why is he here? It just felt like it was just obstacle for Peter before he can get to Mary. You know, it's an obstacle for them before they get together. It just wasn't needed. You could have did a different obstacle. You didn't need to do this. Because I'm gonna be honest, any of the scenes that he had with her were very awkward. I'm gonna be honest. I just felt like he doesn't feel like he belonged in the movie. I think he was a character he didn't need to be in it. There was the better shit going on. I just didn't feel like he needed to be in it. So that's my only real criticism. Now back to positives. There's a lot. That train scene, man, I love. Well, not just because it, the city welcomes him back, even though he was gone for a while. The fact that they learned who he was, well, they didn't necessarily know his name, but they saw him without the mask because his mask got burnt during the trying to stop the train. The fact of the city, like, you got to go through me and like all. I love that shit, man. Like, because that's the one thing I love about Spider-Man is how much he does build up that like rapport with the city, to where like, yeah, the city will actually be willing to help him and shit. So I do love that. I love that final act. That even though it wasn't like a great fight, and it didn't need to be. It was more of a great just back and forth between Peter and Doc Ock, before he had to try to talk him down and, even taking the mask off. I love all that shit. So Spider-Man 2 is one of the greatest. It's probably it could be my favorite. I know Logan is probably objectively my favorite Marvel movie, but Spider-Man 2 might be like subjectively my favorite just because how good, like, to me, this was peak Marvel in terms of film for me. The story being told, Alfred Molina's performance, just everything in this movie, the soundtrack, that final act is just so fucking awesome. That train scene, but also the scene even the little subplots are really good. And I'm gonna say it, I love Jameson in this movie. Jonah Jameson, he was fucking awesome. That's where we get the meme, the laugh, the GIF from where he just laughs and, you serious? It's like, I love that shit. He is the best comic book movie cast. I just think the way J.K. Simmons plays Jonah Jameson, he is Jameson. Like, even that scene where, he's, a genuine scene where he, like, realized, maybe the city needed Spider-Man, I was wrong. And then the moment Spider-Man takes the suit, that switch, he's a menace. gonna say that's the other thing. This movie is very funny. Like there was a lot of times I was just laughing when I was watching this. So Spider-Man 2 is a classic. I definitely, if you've not seen it, definitely recommend it. This is peak. Like it's not just a good. I don't even look at this just a good Spider-Man movie. I look at this as one of the best Spider-Man stories in the Spider-Man mythos in general, and that's even including comics. So like I really love. That's how much I love this movie. So happy to be reviewing it. Yeah, we got Spider-Man 3 next week, which is a mixed bag because I think there is some good in there. Like I actually like, granted, you get the emo Spider-Man dance, emo Toby, Bully Maguire. We did the Bully Maguire memes out of it, so I kind of can accept the whole emo storyline because of it. But I do like besides some of that, I do like the whole inner turmoil, and I do like the black suit, and I even like the good riddance scene. I think there's moments in that movie. It's the Venom shit that really ruins it. Like Venom should not just look like Spider-Man but with teeth, and that's what it really felt like. Venom is a big villain. Like I always felt like Topher Grace in another world could have been in like another timeline could have been Peter Parker. Like he makes more sense to be a Peter Parker than a Eddie Brock. So anyway, so that's next week. Tomorrow I'm gonna be reviewing Blue Beetle. It'll be a little bit of it'll definitely be a rant. It's not a good movie. The message is obnoxious. The movie has zero identity when your identity in quotes is just literally other fucking movies that are better than you. Then yeah. Anyway, let's get into it. So basically, we see Peter working, 2 years after becoming Spider-Man. He works at a pizza delivery, and he has a pattern of just being late in his life's not really. He owes rent too. So his life's not necessarily in the best kind of way right now. He's late again for delivery, and this is where they do get that awesome scene, just Spider-Man on his way in his moped. He ends up. I love that opening where he has to try to deliver the pizza as Spider-Man. Like that's something he would do because it's like, oh yeah, we gotta be quicker. So he just tries to swing there, but then he has to save kids from this truck, and then yeah, he ends up being a little bit late for the delivery. And not making because it's like 29 minutes to be there, so he gets fired. It's his birthday. Harry has a little bit of resentment. Obviously, has some resentment because he takes pictures of Spider-Man, so it's just constantly mentioned when they're together about like, why do you help this freak and all this. So he kind of, there's a little bit of resentment there. Mary Jane, obviously there's that, the ending of the first one where they do, like, I'll admit, in the start of the movie, she's actually not bad. I like that scene outside the house, after the party's over, everybody had left and all that. I like that scene, between the two. Like, if that was just more of that, but unfortunately, there's not really. So yeah, Peter owes the money to his he owes rent at his new apartment, and this is where Alfred, I would say Alfred Molina. This is where Dr. Octavius gets introduced, and he builds this thing that basically sucks like a bunch of, basically like a mini sun. I actually think that some of the CGI is a little wonky at times, but to be honest, who gives a fuck? This is how good this film is. But the moments like with the effects like that, that actually looked really good, to be honest. So Harry introduces Peter to Octavius, and like in the comic, Octavius becomes like Peter's mentor. So that night he's supposed to go see Mary's play, and on the way there, A robbery happens, and Spider-Man has stopped the robbery. He manages to do it. We get that awesome scene where where a lot of like, I love the Spider-Man PS4 game, but you could clearly tell they got this, like, the car, stopping the car scene, like sections of the game from this scene, because it's very much similar. They take the guys out the car and then web up the car, and and all that. But his webs he starts losing a little bit of his powers. So I do like the scene where he's in the elevator and he has the awkward conversation with the guy and he's in costume. I did love that. That was funny. Like, that's what I was saying. Like, this film is genuinely funny, and it makes sense because Spider-Man, when he's written well, is kind of a funny character. Like, I even think he has funny moments in the PS4 game. So, like, when he's written well, like, yeah, he definitely can be a funny character. So it makes sense. So, yeah, he's late to the play. She starts kind of ignoring him. Like, she ignores his calls, which, man. And then I'm just gonna get into it. She gets in a relationship with Jameson's son, John. Makes no sense because it's not even introduced. Like they kind of just show, like, oh, she's with him, with a kiss. It didn't even feel introduced. Like, it just felt like okay, we gotta have a construct, a block here, roadblock here for the relationship. It just felt like they could have did a better way. And I love this movie, but that's the only element I don't really like. And obviously Mary Jane in general, she's mad at Peter because Peter did not fucking go to her fucking play. Like, if that's it. There's nothing else. And I guess you could argue, oh, well, he's stringing her along, but it's like, but then she's, the problem is, it kind of gets a little bit ruined when she does say, like, somewhat knew. Then it's like, okay, if you did know, or even somewhat knew, then why are you mad at Peter? Then if you always knew, okay, maybe he is Spider-Man and he's doing Spider-Man stuff. I don't know. I know it sounds like I'm criticizing this movie a little bit, but it just, Mary Jane in general, she comes off selfish in this version. Like, it's just, I don't know why they wrote her this way, but anyway. So yeah, this is where we get the demonstration scene, and I love that scene. Just because, like, I love, like, Alfred Molina's kind of, like, he has, like, charisma and, wowing the crowd. It starts out so well, and, things, he turns on the machine, but it starts, like, going crazy, and unfortunately his wife ends up getting killed during it, and, Spider-Man shows up, tries to, like, turn it off, but then, the arms attack Spider-Man, and he does end up stopping it, but yeah, his wife unfortunately gets killed in the process. Octavius, his wife. And then, I love how Harry is pissed that Spider-Man touched him. He touched me. Even though someone told me, well, he saved you, sir. He fucking touched me. It's basically what he said. It's fucking great. I think James Franco really did step up his performance as Harry. Like, he felt like he really played that damaged Harry very well. Like, you could tell, like, you could see the seeds. It just, the third movie, I think, really does drop the ball. The whole New Goblin. Like, one, he should have been Hobgoblin, not New Goblin. It was kind of weird. It's like, I don't know if it was but they own Spider-Man, so it shouldn't have been a licensing thing. They should own the Hobgoblin character. So why did they just, I don't know if they thought the name was stupid, so we're gonna call him, like, New Goblin. That was just generic. Anyway, I know that's Spider-Man 3, but I think, like, they were setting something up in this film very well. So after this, Doc Ock gets sent to the hospital. Doctors try to, like, cut the arms, like, from Octavius. Then yeah, we get that awesome scene where, yeah, he kills, like, the doctors unknowing. Like, he's laying on the gurney, and the arms are just doing all the work. is fucking crazy. Like very well done, like very horror. Like it did feel like a horror movie a little bit. So while this happens, um, Peter, is starting to go like more and more. This well, actually no. Before this happens, he finally tells Aunt May what really happened. Uh, uh, with Uncle Ben. I actually that's the other thing I want to mention. I love that they got Cliff Robertson to come back as Uncle Ben, like for that scene because it's kind of cool. Because like I can believe Peter having that kind of conversation with himself with Uncle Ben, about what's going on. Because it's like he wants to have his dream. He feels like he wants Mary Jane, and he feels like Spider Man is holding him down, and more, and also he's losing his powers. And I actually like that scene too, where he goes to the doctor, and the doctor's like talking to him, and it actually has a genuine conversation. Like this movie is so well done. Like even scenes like that, like, and it's not like not some crazy scene. It doesn't really have anything to do with like with the main plot, but it's still such a well done scene. So I love that about this movie. Just things like that. So he decides to basically quit. Actually, no. Before this, sorry, I jumped ahead a little bit. We get the scene where basically he succumbs to the arms. The arms convince him to get what he wants and rebuild the machine. So he robs the bank while Peter and Aunt May are trying to deposit money, but the bank's not allowing them. So that's where we get the bank scene, and I really love how well I love the fight between Doc Ock and Spidey in this, and just like you, I think they do a good job with like when Doc Ock like was throwing shit, you felt it when Peter got hit, grabbing Aunt May. I love like the scenes when he's climbing the side of the building. Like they really captured the character Doc Ock perfect because that's pretty much how he was in the comics. So I really think they did a really good job. Like Alfred Molina really did it. Well, granted, in the comics, he's more villainous in the comics. That's the only difference. Like he's not necessarily sympathetic. Some versions he is, but majority no. He's largely non-sympathetic. He's straight up a bad guy. But I do like what this movie did. But they do still capture when he is a bad guy. Like unfortunately, what this movie does, and even in the next film, they try to do the whole sympathetic villain thing in this film does it very well because you kind of get it because he's kind of forced in a way. Like it's like the arms manipulating him, and that's more what it is. He's more corrupted, but when he's corrupted, he does bad things. Like he does, but he's still a villain when he does villain stuff. It's not like, oh, wham, feel bad for me. Unlike fucking Spider-Man 3, where you have fucking Sandman every fucking 5 minutes. Let's look at this locket to force you to feel bad. Like, it was very forced. Where at least in this, it was subtle, but he's still a villain when he's doing villain stuff. It's like Mr. Freeze, right? Where, yeah, you feel bad for what happened with his wife, but he's still, when he's doing villain shit, he's doing villain shit. And I like, that's kind of what he does here. Like, you feel bad for him because it's like the arms corrupting him, but it's also like, and he's also angry about his wife, but he's still, when he's doing villain shit, the movie says, yeah, this is bad, so manages to get away. Doc Ock attacks Harry, and basically, before Harry about to get killed, basically, Harry makes a deal that if you give him Spider-Man, that he'll give him like this thing that will basically activate the machine. So basically gives him the information, like, because him and Peter have a fallout at the this like gala thing that Peter had to take a picture of. It was like a science thing where basically it was a big announcement about John and Mary's engagement. And that scene with Mary and Peter at that engagement, that pissed me off, man. I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty angry. Because it was like, you're just mad because he didn't come see your play. like even say, "Oh, my abusive dad came to see my play," even though he just came to just get money. So no, he probably didn't. So it sounds like he just left just to get some money. How was that any? Anyway, they Mary Jane in this movie, like a large portion of this movie, her whole resentment makes no sense. If we're being honest, it's like if she's supposedly figured relatively new, because that's basically because even in the end of the first one, it kind of you could kind of she it's almost implied she knew, and I think they should have just had it to where she knew the whole time. That would have been interesting, because the end did that with Spider Man, where Mary knew from the beginning, but it because it's like even in the fact that she says she always knew, it's like why not just go with it? Because then it just makes her behavior in this even worse. Because if she's somewhat new, or always knew, or even somewhat, then it's like, why not? Why were you acting this way? Why are you all mad that Peter's late to shit? And her behavior in this movie just was. It's not as bad in 3 because I think there are scenes in this that do save it, but yeah, I think it's not. I don't fully blame Kirstie Dunst though. I think it is the writing. Maybe in the third one I might blame her a little bit because her performance wasn't as good either. That's the other thing. I didn't think her performance was good in the third one at all. So I do blame her a little bit in terms of the performance. But so Peter and Mary. Oh yeah, so Peter quits being Spider-Man. And I do like how initially, obviously it seemed good. Peter gets to go to Mary's play, which I guess we're supposed to be all happy about. He's doing better at school because, he's in college and, he's kind of flunking because, being Spider-Man, he's not studying and all that. Things seem fine, but then crime starts going up. And I do love that scene where Peter finally tells Aunt May, like, what actually happened. Because he never told her what actually happened with Uncle Ben and how, why Peter blames himself for what happened with Uncle Ben. So, I really do love that scene. But she ends up forgiving him. But yeah, crime starts going up. There's even a scene where Peter manages to save a kid from a burning building. But because he's still, in that scene where he throws the suit away, which I'll be honest, as a kid, I was sad. I remember being so sad at that moment. And, oh my God, he did not just throw his Spider-Man suit in the trash. Yeah. But he manages to save a kid, but somebody else unfortunately died because he wasn't Spider-Man. Spider-Man would have been able to save both. So, like, they really, like, do a good job of highlighting what happens if Spider-Man isn't around. And then the neighborhood boy is helping Aunt May move out of her house. Talks about, like, what Spider-Man meant to him, and that Spider-Man, like, really brought, what Spider-Man did for that boy. So, like, he really highlights that, and that's what really gets the urge for Peter to start trying to be Spider-Man again and try to get his powers back. So, Peter has basically like a little together with Mary Jane. Then Doc Ock attacks, and man, really well done. See, like Alfred Molina really does a good job at playing a villain. Like when he is a villain, like he really does a good job of like showing it. So yeah, he kidnaps Mary Jane, and basically tells Peter, "You gotta get Spider-Man to come." And yeah, so he goes to the harbor. It starts working on the machine. So Spider-Man comes. Yeah, this is where because the suit ends up getting taken to the Daily Bugle, and I love this scene where fucking Jameson's like giving like a genuine speech. You know what? I was wrong about Spider-Man, and he was an actual hero. Like he has almost like a moment of reflection, and then Spider-Man takes the suit, and then he goes right back into like on cue. He's a menace. It is one of the funniest scenes. It was fucking hilarious. So yeah, this is where we get the train scene, and man, one of my favorite scenes. I loved watching this as a kid. I rewinded this scene a lot when I got it on DVD, and such an awesome sequence. Like, just the back and forth. They really showed how like Doc Ock was dangerous. Like he ended up like causing the train to basically get rid of the brakes, and now basically was able to get away because Spider-Man's distracted with the train and having to try to stop it. And what he was trying to stop it, like one of the sparks ends up kind of burning the mask, so basically he has to take it off, and this is where he's with his he's now exposed. I love that scene because of that. Like it tests him as a hero. And hold on, okay, I just wanted to see if it was still recording. I love that train scene, man. And and it's one of those scenes that's been so copied in a lot, like where he uses the webs and he's like trying to hold something back or whatever. So he manages to stop the train, and this is where Doc Ock comes back. And the people like and I love like when the city sees it's like a kid, they really like, oh my god, it's like this could be my son, like somebody, like really, yeah, like that's what makes Spider-Man like a great hero. Is, don't get me wrong, I love Batman and I love Superman, but it's what makes Spider-Man great is the fact that, yeah, he is just like a regular guy, like his alter ego. Like Clark Kent is like a successful reporter. Yeah, he's not rich or anything, but he's a successful reporter. Some iterations, he's dating Lois Lane. He's relatively successful. He's not like, he's struggling with money. And obviously Bruce Wayne is Bruce Wayne. So what makes Spider-Man great is that he's just a high school kid or college kid. I prefer when he's in college, personally. Like, so Spider-Man, that's the other reason I love Spider-Man. He's in college. Like, I think Spider-Man's better when he's an adult. I think he's fine in high school, but I think that's been, like, done to death. But I really love, like, that aspect where, like, yeah, he's just a dude. This could be somebody's son, His alter ego is just, yeah, he's just a regular dude. Unfortunately, his life's kind of, struggling. He struggles to pay rent. He struggled stuff with Aunt May, with Mary Jane. Like, he has to balance being a hero and doing all that while still going to school, or either getting a job. That's what makes Spider-Man one a great superhero. So that's why I love how much he wins the city's appreciation, even though he left for a little bit, because they just wanted him back. And that's what makes this such a great movie. So Doc Ock, she's like, all right, just fucking pushes him aside. That was funny. And then, yeah, he takes him to Harry. He gets the thing and leaves. And then, yeah, before Harry's about to stab Spider-Man, he unmasks him, he realizes it's Peter. And, he's kind of shocked. And this scene a little bit frustrated me. Because, so Peter, breaks out of, his bindings. And then asks Harry to tell him where the location of Doc Ock is. Because he tells him that he has Mary, and obviously Harry still cares about Mary Jane. Because he's like, I didn't know I thought he was just gonna, and he's still mad about, he mentions, like, you killed my father, which, why didn't Peter say, no, I didn't kill your dad? No, none of that. He's just like, okay, that's not important now. So it's like, okay, so you're taking credit for killing him, even though you didn't kill him? That was weird to me. Like, it is a little weird to me. Like, why didn't you just tell him? Like, it was the same thing with, like, and I'll get to this in the third film a little bit, but I'll mention it here, where, like, the butler finally tells him that fucking Green Goblin killed himself with his own glider. It's like, you waited 2 movies to tell him that. It's like, how many movies could you have told him this? It was also like, Peter, like, why didn't you just tell him you didn't kill him? At least plead with him. Like, even though, like, Harry would have still, no, you still killed him. You did, like, lied or whatever. I still love the movie, but it just, I'll admit, that is a little bit like, why did you just tell him you didn't kill him? But anyway, so he goes to Doc Ock. We get our final fight, and I actually really like. It starts out like a final fight, but then it's more like Peter trying to like basically plead with Doc Ock, and this is where he takes off the mask, and at the same time Mary finds out. So initially, Doc Ock still tries to kill him, but he very much convinces him to try to take control of the arms, and because they can't stop getting the reactor to work, because even when he unplugs it, it's still going and sucking things in. So he manages to get through, and Doc Ock basically takes control of the arms. Like, that is how you do a good, somewhat redemption with a villain, and it not feel forced, and it actually feels earned. Because Peter basically pleads with him, like, you can't always have your dream, because throughout the film he realized, I can't just, as much as I want Mary Jane, Spider-Man is important. Like, he brings inspiration. The city was in danger, like crime goes up, and he's like, wow. Like, it took a lot, like, to realize, yeah, you can't just, to be a hero, you can't just have what you want. And that's those lessons that's what a good superhero movie should be, is something like that gives you these kind of these ideals that you have to plead with. Like, yeah, you as much as it's cool to be a hero, yeah, there's a lot you have to fucking sacrifice. Personal life. You imagine, yeah, dating. If somebody finds out, like, because Peter realizes the amount of enemies, now you have Doc Ock. It's like, now we've had 2 enemies, so he's like, no, there could be more. There's always gonna be a superhero's yin to a villain for their, a villain for the hero. You need that yin to the yang. You need that opposite. So, because when there's a hero, especially this, it's gonna escalate. When Batman arrived, the villain escalation happened. Same with Superman and all these other heroes. It always happens because there's a hero. There needs to be a villain. Because you're not going to just be stopping robbers in this kind of world. When you have a hero like Superman, who's super powered being Kryptonian, of course there's going to be other villains who are super powered or whatever are going to come. Batman, this guy in a costume, yeah, there's going to be bigger, worse villains coming in the city that come out of that. It's not going to just be robbers he's beating up forever and gangsters. And I think that's what makes in general comic books great, when they're done fucking well, is that. So I love that aspect. So Peter convinces Doc Ock to destroy the reactor, and Doc Ock ends up, going with it. Peter manages to save Mary Jane. Now she knows he's Spider-Man, and she wants him to be with him. To her, Jesus fucking Christ, wants him to be with her, and he obviously initially can't, because what happened in, like, the last, like, he doesn't want her to get hurt. And this is where we get the big day, and she just runs off. That's why I didn't really talk about John Jameson a lot. I just didn't feel like he even needed to be in the movie. It was just, he was clearly there just to be roadblock for Mary Jane and Peter to be together. That was it. Like, I felt like you could have written them out, and it could have been some other like kind of obstacle for Peter and Mary. I didn't really care for this one. So she runs to him, and we get that. I do love that scene in the end, where she finally tells Peter, like, why she wants to be with him, and that she's willing to go through. Like, that felt like Mary Jane, the actual character. And it's like, if we had gotten more of that Mary Jane in the movie, maybe she would have been a bit better, but it's just, unfortunately, we really didn't get a lot of that. And she even says, get him, Tiger. Like, we didn't get there was not a lot of that in this movie. We finally get it, and it's like in the end. And then, yeah, he swings off, and, into another adventure. I fucking love this movie. This is how you do a superhero movie. This is how you just, in general, do a movie. The soundtrack, great villain, great story, the great escalation, follow up from that first one, which is so good in its own right. To make an amazing follow up that actually, in my opinion, is like the peak. This is peak of comic book films for me. Was this movie, and that moment where Peter loses his power. It's just everything about it. Alfred Molina's performance as Doc Ock is fucking legendary. This is like one of the greatest versions of Doc Ock, to where I feel like a lot of Doc Ock interpretations kind of try to be Alfred Molina's, you know. After a while, I love Jameson. The Jameson scenes are some of my favorite scenes in the movie that are not like Spider-Man related. Like how much he really encapsulates, he perfectly captures the character. Like that's why, like, I get everyone loves Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. I do too, as some of the best comic book movie castings. And I'm not gonna necessarily argue with you, but for me, it's J. Jonah Jameson and now J.K. Simmons. I think this is more recent, but the way J.K. Simmons plays Jonah he's like, he brought that character alive from the comics, and not just the looks, like how much he looks like the character. It's also the way he talks and his just demeanor, the way he says you menace. Spider-Man's a menace. Like he really he perfectly captures that character. Like holy shit, watching it recently, like especially, in this one, he is so fucking great. And Jameson's kind of a funny character in general too. Like he can be. So it's like J.K. Simmons really captured that. I love Aunt May in this movie. She's supposed to always kind of be Peter's right. No disrespect to Marissa Tomei, but I should not. I'll say this again. I should not want to fuck Aunt May, and I think that. And she also didn't have that wise aspect about Aunt May, which she kind of should have, because she's like a carryover for Uncle Ben, so she's supposed to still like instill those ideals into Peter a little bit, like kind of like Mary Jane in a different way. Like Mary Jane should be Peter's rock and Spider-Man's rock, and maybe ultimately she should have learned Peter was Spider-Man in the first one. Now that I'm thinking about it, like maybe they should have had her find out in the first movie, like instead of this movie, and I think if they had did it that way, their relationship could have been tested differently, and then maybe they could have did it better. Because Mary Jane unfortunately suffers in these next two movies, this one and then definitely in the last one. They really did a bad job with her, and I now, like, I'm gonna be honest, Kirsten Dunst's Mary Jane just doesn't hold up. So I hate to say it, Mary Jane has never really been properly adapted in a movie. Like, I would probably say Kirsten Dunst is one of the worst versions. If we're just talking just the first movie, then no. But unfortunately, we're going with the whole trilogy. She is. I hate to say it, because I love Mary Jane as a character, and I just think, and it's not fully Kirsten Dunst's fault. I don't actually really blame. In the third one, I'll blame her a little bit because her performance isn't that good. But at least in this one, it's not her fault. It's the writing, really, for her. I think the writing, it's a combination of the writing and a little bit of her acting in the third one. I didn't think she was really doing that good in that one. But yeah, I didn't really care for this movie. Holy shit, sorry. I meant to say I didn't care for her performance as Mary Jane, and unfortunately it does not age well. If I'm being honest. I didn't mind it as a kid, but yeah, her performances just suffer. But overall, I love this movie. This is how you do a comic book film. One of the greatest comic book films of all time. For me, it's my favorite Marvel film, subjectively. Like, Logan might objectively, but this one might be. The way this movie this was peak Marvel, and this is peak Spider-Man. Like, when this was coming out, like, Spider-Man, like, felt like such a big fucking deal when this was out. Seeing this in the theater was fucking awesome. That train scene in the theater is one of the greatest experiences ever. This whole movie in general, but that train scene, so I love this movie. So yeah, guys, 10 out of 10. It's one of the greatest comic book films ever made. Um, Definitely recommend it. Tomorrow, I'm going to be going in on Blue Beetle, which they should have just released this on HBO Max. This just very much feels like an HBO Max movie. It doesn't feel like ironically, Spider-Man 2, I just reviewed it. The OMAC tech, like when it gets on their back, it feels like Doc Ock's like arms a little bit mixed with like Iron Man, like when it powers up, like Iron Man's suit. It's very derivative. This movie really has no identity because it's like this is from this movie done better. I've seen this in this movie done better. It's so like they didn't even try to make their own movie. Like even try to give its own identity. It's just, yeah, I've seen this. I've seen this. I've seen this better. I've seen this done better. I'd rather watch this than, fucking, yeah, it makes you just want to watch Spider-Man 1, this one, because I even think like the text a little bit Doc Ock ripoff, mixed with like Iron Man's like scene, the nanobites when it gets on, armors up. There's even like a Jarvis for the suit. It's like, oh my god, you really just copied other comic book movies and didn't even try to make it your own. Yeah, Superman, Spider-Man 2000, the first one, does have that template of the Superman 78, but it's still its own movie. It stands out. It didn't just like, let's just copy Superman 78 and just copy it and make it a derivative, even to the point where like there's moments like in this movie where the fucking Jaime's suit is literally just an Iron Man suit. Like you have like the view, the weird, Iron Man vision kind of thing. And even like the opposite where you see like his eyes and he's talking to the suit. It's literally done like that. There's even like the Iron Man versus Ironmonger fight where he fights the OMAC suit in the end. The heavy messaging too is just holy shit. It's just, this movie could have just been a derivative piece of shit, but you have to be a derivative heavy messaging piece of shit. So I'll be talking about that tomorrow. Sunday, I'm gonna for sure see Voyage of the Demeter, so I will be reviewing that, even though apparently Voyage of the Demeter is gonna be out on the 29th, which is like, why would you do that? Now the people who wanted to go see it, there's even a part of me that was like, maybe I'll just wait. Now I was like, I'll still go, but it's like, I'd rather, but why would you do that? Like maybe give it a few weeks. Like they're like already taking it out, like putting it on digital already, like in the 29th. That's like 2 weeks, about, maybe. Like, holy shit, that's not that long. So that was kind of weird. It's a weird decision to put that out. So anyway, so I'll be reviewing that Sunday. But yeah, so that's my schedule for the next 2 days. So Blue Beetle rant tomorrow, and then uh Last Voyage of the Demeter review. So anyway, guys, I'm gonna cheers and talk to y'all tomorrow. Spider-Man 2 is still the best Spider-Man. You can't top it. People try to say like Spider-Verse, some like you're even No Way Home. I'm like, you're high. And I'll admit I've not seen all of No Way Home, but I don't even have to see all of No Way Home to know it's not better than Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man 2 is peak Spider-Man. But anyway, guys, I'll talk to y'all tomorrow. Peace.